pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to our February 6th council meeting. Please note the council is in full attendance, and first item on our agenda is items from council.
I just want to pull D4. I have just a few questions. I know there's several items that are, similar, but I just have general questions.
Okay.
D4 being the
No,
employment
D5,
contract?
D5.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, D5, okay.
All right.
I have several.
Okay.
I'd like to pull D10. And then just two other things. One is that this is for Dana, who's way back in the back. But my husband attended the Lifelong Learning Academy's tour of the library last week. And he is still singing the praises both of the two employees that gave that presentation. He thought they were fantastic, and he could not believe all the things that are going on in the library that are not just walk through the shelves and find books. So hats off, and I wanted to say that publicly. Secondly, a citizen asked me about the traffic light at Colorado and Navarro, which used to be at a busy intersection. That intersection's not busy anymore. And he asked whether it was still necessary to be there. And I don't really know how we find that out, except for me to ask and see what staff has to say.
We would do a study to determine taking it down if council wishes us to look at that. Y'all, that's where the old, was it Shield School was at, that intersection
No,
next to
it's
One Land, I'm sorry.
Taco
One
Bell
Land,
is right
Taco
there.
Bell, yes, thank you for that correction.
Might want to consult with DTAR since aren't they going to have a new
There's a lot of
ICU?
ambulance traffic.
Anyway,
But,
Yeah, do
but
that.
we can undertake a study if,
I hadn't thought about that. Maybe we could put it on the calendar for after that's done, instead of taking it out and finding out it needs.
sure.
Could we maybe put on the calendar for, I was going to say 2018, this is 2018.
Yeah, once they complete the
19 or
construction
20, yeah.
project. Okay,
yeah. Yep.
okay,
Good.
be glad to.
I have one just minor on the agenda. I just want to update that let's see, E4, we will vote on after the executive session. So at the end of it, we'll go ahead and do it, the whole agenda, city manager reports and all. Do the executive session, then come out and just do that one last vote. Don't let me forget when we get to that part. Anything else? No other items from council. We'll move to citizens' communication. And this is the time anyone that would like to speak about anything, come up to the podium. And if you could, we just need your name for the record, not your address. Just try to limit your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Thank you.
I do have some copies for you guys.
Okay.
I was a couple short, but my name is Suzanne Cox, and I'm representing Dad's RV Park. And I'm here to address a problem that we're having with one of our new neighbors. It's a Dory nightclub. Our property is located on the corner of Hopkins and Laurent, and the nightclub is directly next door. And the club has become beyond a nuisance. We are losing business over the behaviors that are going on over there. So I'm just going to quickly give you a little bit of background for us. We were established over 40 years ago. We have 120 sites, and we accommodate residents and guests from all over the United States. Our guests are a very diverse group, but they have one common thing, and it's family values, and that goes a long way in this community, frankly. And they come in here and they spend their hard-earned dollars from buying fuel, groceries, they sightsee, they shop, they eat out, they contribute to the community constantly. So over the last several months, we have had many unfortunate situations that have required us to contact law enforcement. The number one is the bass is extremely loud and it's banging constantly. And it goes way past what I would assume was normal business hours for a club. I have records of the police departments that they have actually documented. There have been many calls that are not documented in here, so I don't know what the criteria is for that. But there have been other things too. We've had gunshot complaints. I'm the manager of Dad's RV Park, and so all the residents come to me. And I've heard gunshot complaints, brawls beside the fence. There's been trespassing on our property, and I could go on. I've had 20 or more people come to me and say that they are either going to leave or will not be coming back if that club is still there. So we appreciate local business, and I don't want to shut them down. I want them to be able to function. I just want them to take the initiative to soundproof their building. It is very loud, and I live in the actual dwelling there, so I have real walls. I'm not in an RV, so it's not a matter of just people that are in a thinly walled mobile RV. My walls are vibrating, and I'm nowhere near that club. It's quite a ways away from me. And on that note too, I also would suggest that perhaps you take a look at your ordinances for noise, because I think they may be outdated. I've done some research, and in this day and age, the bass is not, it doesn't come out the same way as regular music. Music isn't our problem. It's the bass. It's that boom, boom, boom. It's like a basketball hitting your wall over and over and over for hours, and you're trying to sleep. And we have a lot of elderly, we have children, quite a large range of people. It's just becoming intolerable. And also, one other thing that I do want to address is that the police department, we've had some varying degrees of attitude from them. Some have been great and very sympathetic to our situation, specifically our zone officer, which is Officer Collins. He was wonderful when I spoke with him on more than one occasion. He was very, very good. But we've had a couple of them that have said some off things, such as maybe you should move. And frankly, that's taking business away from us. If an officer is telling someone, well, if you don't like it, just leave, well, that's hurting my business. That's how I make a living, and that's how it brings the people here. We don't want our doors to close. So my question is really, would you rather have that type of environment or the club environment where there's a lot of kind of unsavory activities going on? I mean, which is more important? I hate that the police actually told 3 of my different residents or guests that maybe they should just leave. So anyway, everything that I have is documented in that, which I gave you, including some signatures. And then, of course, if you want specifics on people who said they were going to leave and not come back, I'd be happy to provide that. You just have to let me know. I hope you'll consider, at least asking them to soundproof their building, if nothing else. So that's it. I appreciate
Okay.
your time. Thank you.
Thank you for the information. We'll take it under review. Someone will get back to you.
Hello, my name is Brad McMurray, and you should have received a packet. I'm with Prospera Housing and Community Services. You should have received this packet, and I believe there's also a PowerPoint that we've got. Don't want to take a lot of your time, but basically we're here to request your support in a future action for an affordable housing development that already exists, that we currently operate. It sustained a little bit of damage or significant damage rather, through Hurricane Harvey. And so we wanted to tell you first a little bit about ourselves. We are, our mission is to provide safe, high-quality, affordable housing and supportive services. And again, my name is Brad McMurray. I'm the development director, and this is Ray Lucas. He's with Lucas and Associates, who's our CPA and works with us on all our developments. And then, we basically do development, resident services. We have a wholly owned property management company. And you can see that we manage or operate close to 5,000 units throughout South Texas. We have 200 units here in Victoria at Houston House property with 50 units, and then the Fox Run apartments that we're talking about today. We've got extensive resident services where we provide after-school programs and also adult programs and provide referral services for our residents. And then the Fox Run Apartments, I'd like to let Ray talk to you a little bit about what we're proposing.
Fox Run Apartments, like he says, 150 units. It's at 2008 Sam Houston Drive. We put in a pre-app for regular 9% tax credits, but we're not competitive. So we are anticipating that we will be able to apply for some disaster credits that will come through the state called Harvey Disaster Tax Credits. The rents at the property are really, it's a project-based Section 8 contract, so everybody there only pays 30% of their certified income. And as a result, almost the entire property is under 50% of area median income. 91 of the units are actually under 30% of area median income, which is the poverty level. The levels of income are above the 30%, 50 and 60 up there. And the 30 is, I think, called the poverty level, and the very low income is the 50. That's for a family of 4. It goes up or down if it's fewer folks or more folks in the unit. This is the worst case scenario on what we'll have to fund in order to totally demo the inside of Fox Run and rebuild it, keeping the structure intact. We hope this is not what we have to do. We hope it's a little less than this, but we're still evaluating the total damage. This is the current income levels of the folks, as I mentioned a minute ago, that are in the complex. 91 units are at 30 and below, 34 at 50 below, and 5 between 60 and 50. Any questions?
We, basically what we're requesting is at a future meeting, probably on February 20th, just a resolution of support that we could provide you some draft language. Again, we're not applying for 9% tax credits because we weren't competitive in Region 10. It looks like Corpus Christi and Portland can score higher than Victoria, unfortunately. But there's a great need for affordable housing, and because of the damage to the Fox Run, which really provides affordable housing, the rent's based on what a person has an ability to pay. And it's already existing, so it's something that's already a vibrant part of the community. This support would just allow us to possibly get some funding through the state. And then the other thing is part of that, what we anticipate will be the point system, is requiring some type of local participation. And it's a minimal amount of $500, and we would be also requesting that possibly up to $500 on the building permit fee could be waived, just so we could get those points. But again, this would be something that would be brought to you on February 20th if it's acceptable to you.
Another thing of note is that these properties are overseen by a local board. So Prospera has actually formed a local board of directors, of which 2 folks are residents and 4 are community members. 2 are currently out of San Antonio, but 2 are currently out of Victoria. So the operation of that property is overseen by local people. We're looking for, Prospera's looking for possibly another board member that might want to take one of the San Antonio board member positions so that we can, have people from Victoria guiding the operations of those properties.
Council, as a reminder, this is listed on your agenda, so we can have conversations back and forth and answer questions.
Sharmell, this is the same entity that came in last week or last meeting for the 9% that was not denied. So all they're asking is for permission to apply for the federal government or the state now, instead of going with that 9% tax credit.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Okay,
A letter from us.
okay.
A resolution,
letter,
we'll
yeah.
need a resolution,
Resolution.
and what we propose is that we'd come back at the next meeting if council wish to do that, and then they're asking for the up to $500 and a waiver of building fees, which gives them more points in their application process.
Okay. And that would be part of the resolution?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
it would be.
That's fine.
Is this a different category that you're applying in now?
Exactly. The 9% is already set up, but that we're anticipating and hearing different things and want to be ready because it could be a situation where it's first come, first serve. So we want to be in a position that we have an application as soon as the period opens, we just submit the application day one. And this is what we anticipate to be part of the overall application requirements.
Previously, the hurricanes that have hit Texas, they've had similar tax credits for those properties. in, say, the Houston area for, was it Katrina? Possibly, yeah. They call them Katrina credits, so these would be Harvey credits.
Okay,
We just kind of like councils, okay, we'll work on a resolution for the next meeting then.
That's fine.
Thank you.
very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Citizens' communication is still open. Anyone else would like to come forward? Now'd be the time. Okay. Seeing no one jump up, we'll close citizens' communication, move into the rest of our agenda. We do have one item with a public hearing.
Item C1 is an ordinance calling for a joint general election with the City of Victoria, Victoria College, Victoria Independent School District, Victoria Water Control and Improvement District Number 1, Victoria Water Control and Improvement District Number 2, and Quill Creek Municipal Utility District on Saturday, May 5th, 2018 for Districts 1, 2, 3, and 4 council members, establishing procedures for holding the election, designating the precincts and polling places for the election, appointing certain officers to conduct the election, providing for the sharing of expenses, providing for savings, and declaring an effective date. We have this on an emergency reading tonight, council, which would require an affirmative vote of 5 members of council.
Let's do the public hearing first real quick. We'll open the public hearing on C1. Anyone would like to speak to that item alone, would please do so now. Come forward. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing on C1. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second. Questions? And I believe there was a good question earlier. I think I'll go ahead and just point it out. If no one does file, if these are all uncontested, we do not have to have an election. That will save us the cost of the election, even though we're doing this. This is just setting the calendar?
That's right. This is calling the election so that we can move forward with it.
Right, right. As we're required to. Okay.
That's right.
Let's see, we have a motion and a second, right? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same? Okay. C1 passes. Do you want to just do the consent agenda? And then we'll do
come
the
back
pool
to this.
items later. Okay.
Sure. There are 8 items remaining on the consent agenda. There are first, item D1 is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 22nd, 2018. D2 is a resolution approving and adopting the City of Victoria's investment policy and the list of qualified brokers who are authorized to engage in investment transactions for the City of Victoria and declaring an effective date. D3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an employment agreement with Charmel Garrett as city manager and declaring an effective date. D4 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an employment agreement with Thomas Gush as city attorney and declaring an effective date. D6 is a resolution approving the sale of tax foreclosed property, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to convey 4508 Morris to Sergio Calixto and Yuri Robles Calixto in exchange for $8,300 and declaring an effective date. D7 is a resolution approving the sale of tax foreclosed property, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to convey 203 Marvel to Guadalupe C. Zapata in exchange for $11,000 and declaring an effective date. D8 is a resolution approving the sale of tax foreclosed property, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to convey 1908 East Crestwood to Thomas William Lawson in exchange for $17,000 and declaring an effective date. D9 is a resolution approving the purchase of ammunition, distraction devices, and less than lethal chemical munitions for the Victoria Police Department Training Unit and SWAT team from GT Distributors in the amount of $75,463.23, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the purchase and declaring an effective date.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Okay, ayes have it. So D5.
D5 is a resolution approving the sale of tax foreclosed property, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to convey 1706 Alamo to Raquel Rodriguez in exchange for $38,000 and declaring an effective date.
So move.
Second.
Okay, questions?
I have some questions because people ask me, so I'm just going to ask, okay. Where are these properties posted?
We have a representative here from the Linebarger and Goggin law firm who actually handles this for the county and for the city and the other taxing units, and so I'm going to let him answer the questions. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Council, and administrative staff. My name is Michael Carrillo. I'm the Senior Area Manager for Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson. To answer your question, these properties are posted on the Victoria Advocate for the initial sale. They're posted 3 times. They're posted on our website for the month preceding before the sale. And then afterwards, the ones that are struck off are also on our website, which is nationwide.
Oh, those are on the website too?
Yes.
Okay, didn't realize that.
Yes.
Okay, do you get more than one bid for these items or just one?
Yes, all of these, what happens is, just like today, today was tax sale day. We had a tax sale, everything got sold, so good thing we don't have to have this again in the future. But if they were not, a property was not, if it was offered and nobody bought it, we considered it struck off to the taxing entities, okay? So the county, school, city, college, hospital, everybody has an equal say in it, in these properties. At that point, we take bids for less than the amount. If it is for less than the amount, people can submit bids. We take all of those, regardless what the bids are. We contact everybody. We give it a certain time. I mean, usually it's a couple of months that we get all these bids in. We call everybody. We set a time, and we have what's called a bid off. They're at the building where our office is, at the Patty Dotson building. So at that point, everybody who wants to go over a certain amount, they show up and we have a bid off, just like we do on the courthouse square. And these are the highest bidders that was at that point.
So the sale, if I may.
No, go ahead.
The sale today was where?
The sale today was on the courthouse steps.
Okay. And about 5-6 years ago, I remember because we repeat history in this chamber quite a bit, good questions. The suggestion was made from Mr. Halapaska about putting for sale signs in the yards. Are we doing that?
We've done that in the past. The problem with that is almost vandalism. People would take off a sign, put it on somebody else's yard. We'd have people calling and, hey, this isn't, it's not for sale. What we're doing now is with our software system, and we're telling people they can register if they say they're interested in property in Victoria County. Anytime we have a sale, they get an email. They get a push alert. And we have pictures. We have actual, now it's coordinates. So we get, anybody all over the world can actually log on. If you want to log on right now to lgbs.com, you can look at tax sales throughout Texas, Philadelphia, there's some other states that we have. What the opening bid is, it has procedures that people would have to take, and it shows a property, and it actually shows a pin that they can actually zoom into to find out where these properties are.
Is that something new? Because I know I've researched before.
Yes,
I was
actually,
gonna say.
it's a brand new system. It had been, we had two competing. We had the old way to do it, which was just kind of paper, and we had the new way. Well, the new way was running parallel, but starting in January, we went completely with the new system, and so
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
pretty proud of it.
Is that linked to the tax website?
I'm not sure if RENA has our most of the tax collectors in the area. I'm in charge of 9 of them, 9 counties, and most of them do have a link on their website. They're not required to by law, but I'm not sure if RENA does or not.
I was just wondering because she was saying people would wonder how to get to it.
Yeah, but now everybody that usually calls us, we remind them, hey, go on our website. Even if they just want to see what's there, there's a link in the top right corner that all they have to do is put their address, email address in, and some
So
information.
you can subscribe just like
You
any
can
other
subscribe.
email? Okay,
Correct.
okay.
And we usually we don't have one every month. We try to have one, but we usually have from 6 to 8 a year in
Okay,
this county.
Okay, we'll see you there, Miss Solis.
yes.
Yes.
I did it once, about 10 years ago. I went to bid. I was not successful, but
Oh, I did, and I bought a triangle, so I was like, okay, what do we do with this triangle?
And
yeah. 20
by the
years
way,
ago.
these bids are very good compared to other counties. You know, like I said, I deal with other counties, and if you're getting money, you're doing good. So
The amounts seem higher, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
they are higher.
Any further questions, council?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Okay, item passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
D10,
D10 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Civil Corps LLC for surveying services for the Red River Reconstruction Project in the amount of $50,000 and declaring an effective date. And Mayor and Council, I want to point out that I put a substituted version of that contract in front of you that changed the effective dates for performance so that the period for performance will start tomorrow and run thereafter.
Make a motion to approve item D10.
Second.
okay. Discussion?
I have a question on it. This is going to be designing Red River between Laurent and Maine, which means it goes through Navarro.
Yes, ma'am.
There is no protected left turn going east, going on Red River at Navarro.
That's correct.
Is there any way that we could look at putting a protected left turn there?
We can definitely look at it, but what I can tell you is that if you dedicate that inside lane to a left turn lane, that leaves only one lane to either turn right onto Navarro or go straight across Navarro. As it stands right now with the footprint and the right-of-way we have, if you're going to add a lane in there for a dedicated turn lane, you're going to have to acquire additional right-of-way, which I believe is going to be very expensive in that area. And also, you're going to have to change the configuration of your traffic signals. You're going to have to get a bigger mast arm to span that distance. So it's going to add quite a bit of cost to the project. But short answer, yes, it could be done.
Could we at least look at the logistics, the practicality of perhaps doing that protected left? I guess it would start with traffic counts or seeing the usage. I just know that there are plenty of times when you cannot make a left turn at that intersection.
Right. Of course, we
I don't
can
know if
look at it. I
anybody
can
else-
ask the design engineer to consider that when they're looking at it.
Well, not to leave you there hanging, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's a number is what it is. It boils down to, and that is, there's no corner to cut there hardly. And if you do, it's going to get astronomical to retool that light.
Right,
I
So
can-
it's either that or give up a lane,
yeah.
2 lanes, so just,
Well, or you could either do you're gonna use one that's gonna be protected left and all the other traffic that's gonna go straight or do a right turn is gonna be in one lane.
Right.
yeah.
So-
Which it would flow that way, but it would be a kind of a traffic count for queuing to
Right.
make sure that everybody could get through.
We have some traffic count data in that area, but I don't know how detailed it is. So if you don't mind, let me pull that together and maybe get some more information I can bring back to you.
Okay, I know I've sat through several lights at that spot trying to make a left. So I avoid it, and if we're rebuilding, now's the time to look at it.
Now, Ms. Scott, you're not asking for us to start looking at additional right-of-way. You're
No, I
asking
don't
for.
think so.
Okay,
Sure.
the current footprint as is, okay.
Okay. We'll look
I
at
mean,
it.
I think you talked me out of that.
Additional right-of-way.
Because those utility poles are right up on that
They
road,
are.
man, that's, whew,
Those properties don't have any
yeah,
right of way to give up.
No.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, good question. Always need to look at things like that. Is there other discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Okay, thank you, Donald. So E1,
E1 is a resolution granting a variance to section 21-82A1, which requires single-family residential lots to have a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet to allow the subdivision of a 4,800 square foot lot located at 404 West Murray Street, owned by Greg Stanford, and declaring an effective date.
So move.
Second.
we have a motion second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Thank you. E2,
E2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the First Amendment to the purchase and sale agreement for real estate between the City of Victoria and Castleman Power Development LLC, and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to approve item E2.
Second.
okay, motion seconded, discussion,
What's the close date on this? I forgot I read this, but no.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm sorry. I read it too, and
March 29th.
I believe that.
March 29th? Okay. Did you
No,
find
that's
it?
That's the
No.
contract, sorry.
No, there's still a blank in the
It
closing
says the
date.
Closing date.
We don't have it listed in there yet.
Oh, there it is.
I know that they are eager to get the closing done, and they're just waiting for this amendment to be done. I've been contacted by the title company already, who is moving forward with all the paperwork. But when we were drawing this up, we left it blank because we didn't know yet.
So it's fair to say 4 to 6 weeks?
I think that's fair, yes?
Okay.
Are we just extending the property into the river? Is that what this is?
The expansion of real estate, yes, is because the back property line of this parcel is the river. And since the last time it was surveyed, the river has added a bunch of extra land to the back of it. And so when we originally did the contract, it was described as an 11-acre tract, and it's now a 15-acre tract. So we want to get that property description accurate.
So what happens is the river eats up the land again?
That's very possible. And under Texas law, what happens when your property abuts a river is if the river takes it away, you lose it. If the river drops it there, you gain it.
Okay. Don't build on it, though.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Okay. E3,
E3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to purchase splash pad equipment and installation for the Ethel Lee Tracy splash pad in the amount of $462,000 from Fund Abounds and declaring an effective date.
Second.
okay. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to abstain on this vote. I'm on one of the boards that's involved with this.
Okay.
I'm on the Tracy Foundation Board, so I'm going to abstain.
Well, thank you for that wonderful gift.
You're
anyway.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
The amount that we're moving from parks to general fund is the 45,000? Okay.
It was, we had originally budgeted to do some work around the duck pond and on, where we were having river erosion. So Harvey created such a mess on the river erosion, we don't have enough money in that fund to help. And we have filed with FEMA, and hopefully we'll get some reimbursement to help us with that, so.
Not to get off the subject, but if we get some money from FEMA, are we going to have a capital improvement project on that street?
We're going to try to do some, hopefully we get some reimbursement and do some work. Ken Gill's been working with some natural conservation, resource conservation on what we need to do with that erosion. So it's, if you've not seen it, it's pretty massive. So I think we're going to have to figure out long-term solution. Just like Thomas said, when the river takes the land.
And it gives.
And that river's not giving us anything back in that area.
Okay.
So. But so that helps close that gap on
Okay,
on the funding for that, so.
that's good.
I just want to read these out loud for everybody here. I mean, with the funding amounts, the Ethel Lee Tracy Foundation, $168,000. Marcia Shanklin Foundation, $137,770. And of course, the Sales Tax Development Corporation, $150,000. And those are pretty serious amounts, very generous towards our community. So I really, the Sales Tax Corporation, I kind of understand, but the other two, very, very generous. Other discussion? Did y'all want to show us a presentation, or?
I just have a few photos that weren't included in the CM1 just to give a better view and a picture of what we have. This is the first photo. Then you've got the aerial of what it's going to look like. And then another one. And one more? Or did you only have two? That's it? Okay, so
Okay.
we have the overall picture. And then the other one, that is the shade canopy that's going to go over the picnic tables. And then there will also be another shade canopy that will go over the toddler area.
Very nice.
And this is the same size as the community center splash pad.
Actually, no, it is a little bit
Oh,
a little
larger?
bit smaller.
Oh, small.
Yeah, the community center splash pad is 4,400 square feet, and this one will be 4,160 square feet.
It shows a picture with, looks like AstroTurf or something. Is that a padding of some sort?
Actually, it's going to be your concrete that has a non-slip surface on it that's going to be painted, and that's what we currently have at the community center splash pad. So it is kind of decorative when they get in there, and it's kind of like a pool deck. Pool decking is what it's called.
Okay.
Yes.
The only minor grouse I ever recall hearing about the one on airline was that little kids slip and they'd scuff their knees or something on the concrete. And that's
Okay.
why I asked if it had any kind of a padding or coating that would lessen that.
Mr. Halpaska, that splash pad was built differently. The two that we've put in so far, the one at Community Center Park and this new one will have that decking on it, where this one on Airline is just regular concrete. So that's why we went to the cool deck, because of that. It stops the kiddos from slipping.
Thank you so much.
All right. Very good. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. So E4 we'll do after the executive session. And then, so let's move into city manager report.
That Andrew is going to talk about kind of finance of Hurricane Harvey damage, and has a nice presentation for you.
Just tell us you've got all the money and everything's done, right?
Yeah.
That's what, no?
I can make it short and sweet.
No, I'm not rushing
As
you.
long as you're not asking me to bet on what FEMA's gonna do, I'm here to give you some information, so. You should have, hopefully, I think there was a paper copy in front of you, plus I'll be, working through a PowerPoint so you can see it right here in front of you. And as we get through any of this, just holler out questions or stop me as I go along, so. This should kind of give us a good overview, kind of where we started and where we are today. So kind of starting with some background information, really the EOC, so our City County Emergency Operations Center, is responsible for facilitating the response and recovery to any disaster. There's really two functions within that operation that are tasked with tracking and approving all costs associated that run through the EOC. So that's our logistics section and the finance section. And then one of the key documents that's really generated out of that particular process is the ICS resource request form. It's a 213RR, and if you've been in our EOC, those are flying around like confetti at times. But that really becomes key in trying to recreate the event post-disaster, and that's essentially what we've been in now for about 6 months. So the more documentation you have, the better it is to try to recreate things and really provide that reimbursement documentation that, FEMA's going to need or any other entity out there. Included one in, again, this is a handwritten, literally on the fly during the event. These are then taken from more of a manual process and input into the state's STAR system to actually have an electronic version of it, but there's actually routing that's done for some of the more costly and or, if it's a request that needs to go up through the state, then it goes through that actual application. But we just included one in here for reference, so you can kind of see some of the information that's captured. Another section within the EOC is our planning section, and they were actually tasked with beginning to compile all of the damage to any city facility post-event. And they actually came out of that with a damage assessment report, which was very comprehensive. It literally identified all damage, no matter how small, and that was by location from all the different departments, and really was the list that we began to look at as we started trying to figure out what needed to be repaired, where it was, and kind of start weeding through that process. We used that, again, to kind of go through the repairs, but really start creating FEMA projects. So in the FEMA world, everything has to be a project, and we'll get into a little bit more with that regard. This is the kind of the first time that FEMA is rolling out their grants portal. It is an online portal. It's really a single point of record for all the documentation that's input. Really wasn't a fan at first, but the more you get into it, it's has a lot of information that they're capturing, projects and the damages that we've reported to them. So it's kind of been a good tool in hindsight now. We as a city are a member of Texas Municipal League's Intergovernmental Risk Pool, so TML. has been our insurance carrier and provider, and they have been invaluable through this process. I actually met with a couple of their representatives, I believe it was last week, and they're here looking for feedback on the process. So they're here to assist members. And, you know, we obviously have a lot of locations. We have about 275 scheduled properties on our insurance policy. Now, that's not necessarily 275 locations. We may have one location with multiple scheduled items. So like the golf course, for example, has, I think off the top of my head, 6 or 7 different scheduled items. But you can see how comprehensive our insurance list is. And TML actually sent an adjuster down. He physically looked at each and every location on our scheduled property list. So it took him quite a while. I think in hindsight, they said they probably should have sent down more of a team, but just with the different events going on, everybody got stretched thin. But that's one of their feedback items that they provided. But again, he physically looked at each and every location and did a very comprehensive adjuster's report. I want to say it was about 340 pages long. But it literally details out by location what they have determined to be the damage. So again, another report that we can work off of to start identifying any of the damages to be repaired. Some additional services, again, I can't say enough for TML right now. They also have a couple almost consulting agreements in place. One is with a company called Synergy. They really specialize in remediation and even offer some build back services. So literally a couple days after the event, we needed some remediation done at a couple buildings. This company jumped in, really working on our behalf through the TML arrangement, and got in there and literally got the work done. And then the work that they're doing is paid directly by TML. So that's it benefits us, but TML actually pays the company direct. The other opportunity that we have that will actually be bringing some contracts before your next meeting is with 4T Partnership. Again, it's essentially a consultant that works for both TML and all members. They really specialize in roof replacements and exterior repairs. And we'll talk a little bit more about this company here shortly. Catch up. So as we started looking at what needed to be repaired, we felt that it was very important to create a central accounting. So we have created the Hurricane Harvey Fund, which you've all probably seen, and we did the budget amendment for. Within that, we start breaking it into project cost centers. So we want to be able to track by location, both the cost and associated reimbursements by location. So we've literally done it just at the location level. So Riverside Stadium, Methley Tracy, just a couple examples there. Then we have also, if you look at the 21G golf, that G indicates one of the FEMA cost centers. So we're able to kind of group and report by the FEMA categories if we need to, which segues into, and again, this is probably a lot of information for most folks, but FEMA categories, these are just literally right out of their public assistance handbook. The biggest one for the city was our category A, which is our debris removal. That's obviously the citywide removal of any brush and construction debris. The other category B, or another category B, is emergency protective measures. So that's anything that's done essentially through our emergency operations center prior to and post-event. You know, one of the largest things that was done was a generator rental and then the fuel needed to power that generator. So that ends up getting submitted in under a Category B reimbursement request through FEMA. And a couple of the pieces that we're working currently with FEMA on is force account labor and force account equipment. Another component of the EOC, really within the finance section, is tracking employees' activity, both time and any equipment that they're using, to where we can then roll it all together and ask for some sort of reimbursement on labor and equipment. The force account equipment is literally hours of equipment used, and then FEMA publishes a equipment rate schedule. So if it's a knuckle boom, it has an hourly rate, number of hours for unit XYZ times that, and that's kind of how you submit for reimbursement for both force account labor and force account equipment. Some of the other categories within the FEMA world is Category C is road and bridges. it's pretty self-explanatory, but for us, and I tried to list out examples that are relevant to us. They list out all kind of things, and I just tried to pick the one. So those are traffic signals and signs citywides, and then really our road and sidewalk infrastructure. Category D covers water control facilities. This is really anything for pumping, irrigation, any of our retention or detention basins. And then kind of wrapping up on the categories, Category E is buildings and equipment. The only thing here is obviously it covers buildings. It can relate to content, and we just have to be careful that if we're asking for reimbursement from FEMA, that we're not also getting reimbursement from insurance on things. So a lot of our building and content coverage is going to end up probably coming back through our insurance provider. It also covers any of our fleet, so any of our vehicles and equipment. Category F, we're almost there. It's basically the water distribution and treatment plants, and then also on our sewage collection and treatment plants. And then the final category is G, which is parks, recreational, and other facilities. So it's your typical parks and playground equipment, tennis courts, golf courses, ball fields, and then it's a catch-all because if it doesn't fit in categories C through F, then it gets lumped into G. So I guess they got tired of creating categories and just stopped it at G. So as we started looking at necessary repairs, one of the first things that we were asking ourselves is, what are our funding options, and really more importantly, what are the reimbursement options before proceeding? So kind of that's always, key, and then that determines whether it's going to be captured through a Hurricane Harvey fund. What's already begun was some of those immediate needs that were impacting operations. So we had some pump repairs, we had the turf replacement, the traffic control work that was done, and then everything kind of, I don't want to say everything else, but the next big group, or what's remaining, we're trying to build into kind of larger contracts so we have things with similar scopes to where we can maybe take some quantities of scale. So a couple projects that you'll see, hopefully I have it planned for next meeting, but some roof replacements citywide. Instead of trying to do it location by location, we're trying to roll everything into kind of an overall roof replacement. And this is one where the partnership with the 4T group through TML has been invaluable because he's literally served as our consultant building the scope of works to try to put everything together, and then even helped us with the pricing piece of it. So, the alternative to that would be we go through and try to identify everything ourselves, put it in one big RFP package, and put it out for bid and see what we get. But this has been great to identify everything citywide and really group it by kind of project type. So roof replacement, exterior repairs, and then interior repairs. There will actually be probably some more phases of this, but it just kind of gives you a general idea of what we're looking at moving forward. And then finally, there's some really more like specialized equipment that's at the department level that they are really kind of taking the lead on scoping, determining the need, and then moving forward with the purchase and the procurement piece of that. So some particular examples there, the Riverside Stadium sign, some granite parking lot and trail in the park, and then a Public Works Clarivac unit. Okay. The good note is that the hope today is that the majority of repairs, there's some, obviously we'll talk about a few long-term deals, but the majority of the repairs should be completed in this fiscal year. Worst case, probably within this calendar year. So hopefully by September, worst case, December of this year, a lot of the identified repairs have been done. There are some long-term projects. One was just mentioned earlier tonight. So we've got some riverbank, some erosion issues. There was Guadalupe River, the bank itself, the Guadalupe pump station, the police department's shooting range, the berm down there suffered some erosion. And then the berm that surrounds the Texas Zoo complex has some issues as well. So those are more long-term in nature. Developing and really determining the scope of those is going to take a little more time. You've probably heard about Rebuild Texas, and I think that was maybe one of the first thoughts behind this report. So we've put in, Rebuild Texas is a state initiative. We were asked to submit a list of projects under that. We have done so, and most of those are really designed to prevent or minimize future service interruption, hardening of facilities, mitigation type work. They're still, I believe, defining what's going to get funded at this point. So really just going to show you some of the different projects we've submitted for. Obviously, permanent generator needs are pretty key. Surface water treatment plant, our wastewater treatment plant. This would be at the regional plant, Plant 3, and then also at the raw water pump station. There's also some needed road improvements to that raw water pump station. I could probably address general questions about these projects, but I know the departments would be able to give more specifics.
Andrew?
Yes.
I just had to chuckle, your choice of words, whoever up in Austin is still defining how they're going to fund or choose. I think that's what you said, because it has fizzled a bit. I don't mind saying that. I don't, whatever, but because in my early meetings with some of those folks, it was all about, we were going to, some pretty cool projects that I had discussed with them to mitigate future problems, and now there's a little bit of backing off, is from what I'm hearing, which is frustrating, but don't want to, I'm
Yeah,
not
I've
trying
not
to be
seen
overly
any
negative.
funding come to the table yet that
Right,
I've seen. but-
that's my point. It was blowing and going, and we know what we need locally. 7 of us could come up with a lot of great stuff, but all of a sudden it's, so interesting. But your choice of words was good, I guess.
A non-answer without really getting in trouble, so.
Well, we just have not received any notification on the projects or any funding. I mean,
Right.
nothing formal.
And to their defense, I know
yeah.
the state has a difficult budget too.
Gosh, yeah.
So we may have great projects, oh yeah, we could really use this, but they've got a hard time funding it too. It's just,
Well, and the
so-
enormity of the damage throughout the state,
Yeah,
it's just not isolated to Victoria. So it's kind of like what we've seen with the CDBG DR money, where 80% of that on this first round is going to Harris County, the Houston area. So
right.
we're still waiting.
Correct.
But we're still moving forward with the projects we need to be working on. We're not
Right.
waiting on that.
Yes,
So,
very much so. And there are more, so we've, the other slide of projects that we've sent to them, and transfer switches for generators at some of our critical facilities. That would include the PD City Hall complex, parks and community center. Some ballistic film on the windows at some of the facilities to harden them. Really kind of takes the place or may mitigate any potential damage if we're not able to board up. So 700 Main, Dispatch, Library, City Hall, Parks, and Public Works are some of the identified facilities. A portable HVAC unit, if we lose power and we need to get something in on some vital electronics, maybe at one of the plant control rooms. Reconstruct a fire station to house first responders and fire apparatus and serve as a special needs shelter. Again, basically the erosion and really improvements to just general flood protective measures, so any berms and floodgates. And then finally, construct a stormwater pump station. So we were not short on projects to submit to them, but that's essentially what they have that has been submitted to date. So really, as we start looking at, kind of cost aside, as we start looking into kind of different reimbursement sources, TML, our insurance, has, again, been invaluable. They are, we've actually almost wrapped up the wind claim, so we have a wind claim and a flood claim, both through TML. We're also working with, not necessarily with TML, but TML has a recommended firm that's helping us with an analysis to potentially, and I want to stress potentially, look at some possible loss of revenue recovery. So if we had to make any kind of refunds on prior reservations of pavilions or the community center, they're really helping us work through that. Actually, they're doing all the work to work through a possible loss of revenue recovery due to the impact from the hurricane.
I did ask Andrew to look at, since we were scheduled to open the golf course, and we had to delay it to see if we could, and also look at that revenue loss.
Yes. And they had actually, the piece they did have was some of the believe there's some cart shed rentals that we ended up reimbursing, but yes, city manager's correct. With that delay, basically saying if we could have opened on, I think what was the date?
September 14th.
14th, but we instead didn't open until the 6th, so maybe some sort of recovery for that several month span of not being able to open. Other reimbursement sources, the city did have some additional flood insurance. It was actually written by Wright National Flood Insurance Company. These are separate flood policies from TML. Those, essentially, one of the locations was at the Riverside Golf Club on the clubhouse. You'll note that that claim was denied. Basically, the covered damages identified didn't meet our policy deductible there. Same thing is at Well 19 off of Young Street. Is there a question? No. And then Riverside Stadium, the maintenance building claim was denied. There's actually 7 different policies. So the first 3 listed were denied. We do have, and I actually believe I got those today, some claim payments for Riverside Stadium covering the concession stand, ticket booth, locker rooms, and dressing room areas. So it's additional insurance payments coming in to cover those facilities. And then FEMA, I put it up here as FEMA/state because we kind of joke sometimes about where's the money really coming from and the power struggle between the FEMA and the state sometimes. But we would be looking to those for both Category A and B. So Category A is our debris, Category B is emergency protective services, both of which should be funded at reimbursed at 100%. The remaining categories C through G are at 90% for this disaster. It's historically been 75, but it was bumped to 90 for these categories. And then direct administrative costs. This is they've had this in place. They're doing a pilot program again for Harvey that hopefully will streamline some of the direct administrative costs documentation and submission for, but it should be on 5% of the total FEMA eligible project costs, regardless, and we're still trying to get clarification of whether that's net of insurance proceeds or if it's just the FEMA eligible project costs as a whole. I don't think 5% is enough at times, but we were hopefully getting 5%. Then basically the city's local match will essentially be anything not covered by anything listed above, or FEMA has a minimum for a project to be actually determined to be a project, which is $3,100. So we have a few, and that's really on a location basis. So if the location didn't have at least $3,100 in damages, it does not qualify as a project. So that's probably fine and dandy, but you really want to know, so how are we looking on, which I think was maybe the mayor's question, how are we looking? Just a couple of kind of recap points. The budget amendment done back in October 2017 in the amount of $6 million really covered payments that we were going to be making on debris and some immediate repairs. Then we will begin once, and the way we're treating each project is until the project itself is completely finished, we do not submit for reimbursement. It's just easier to wait, and I'll just take maybe Riverside Stadium. As that project as a whole wraps up, we'll pull all the documentation together and submit it to FEMA, and that's when the reimbursement process begins. So obviously, we're going to need some upfront funds to wait on potential reimbursement, at least from FEMA. And all of this information, or at least the financials that we'll talk about on more of a high level, will be in the upcoming quarterly report. Best guess right now is that it will probably be early next week. But again, the promise was that this fund as a whole would be included in the overall quarterly report. So just to kind of give you an idea, and again, this is just one of the pieces out of that quarterly report, and it's small for me back here. So hopefully you can see it a little bit better on your screen, but just kind of left to right. So again, we list out the different project categories. So we have the A through G. We list out direct administrative costs, and then there's other kind of non-FEMA approved projects at the bottom. Moving from left to right, again, you see the program categories, total estimated project cost. Again, this is as of December 31st. So on debris removal, as of December, we were estimating about $5.1 million in total costs. And then we kind of break it out into which of the buckets that we expect to receive reimbursement for, which is that middle box. And if you're looking at the screen, I'll be pointing over on the right. So in the middle, we break out whether it's going to be insurance, FEMA, and actually insurance that we've actually received, FEMA that we've actually received, or expected FEMA, or, it's 100% of FEMA funds or 90% of FEMA funds, and then we have the direct administrative costs in the final column. And then really probably the most important number that most people want to know is, well, how's the city going to look as a whole? So that the far right column is our net after everything, the costs less any potential reimbursement. So again, picking on the debris because it is the largest number. So we, again, as of December, we're estimating $5.1 million in debris removal costs. We have received $1.4 million from FEMA. The state actually did an expedited funding program that contributed most of that number, and then the state has offered to pick up the city's local match, and some of that we've already received. And then we're basically showing the remainder of 3.7, which is the remainder of 100% of FEMA proceeds. So although we have 5.1 in estimated costs, we also expect to get 5.1 in reimbursement proceeds on debris. And you can kind of see going down. The bottom number at least as of December, we will actually be to the positive of a little over $350,000, and most of that is due to the direct administrative costs. Feel like I should point out a classic example of that 90-10 split. So if you look at the road, the category C, was about $83,000 total expected costs, and we expect to get 90% of FEMA, which would be $75,000, and that $8,300 is essentially the 10% city local match. And then the $16,000 right above, just because it's a larger negative number, that's part of our emergency protective measures, and that is actually fuel that our city fleet used during the disaster. We'd captured it in the hurricane fund, and after we started looking into the specifics of the force account equipment reimbursement, those equipment rates have the dollar hourly rate builds in for maintenance, fuel costs, and those things. So you would essentially be double dipping if you ask for the actual fuel costs and the equipment, and the hourly rate is more beneficial. So essentially that $16,000 is going to be on the city's local match portion there. With that, I can continue to go through all the numbers. That's pretty much all I had planned here. Again, the direct administrative costs and then just the insurance programs have been invaluable here. So be happy to address any questions you may have. Again, there'll be a lot more information on the actual quarterly when it comes out, hopefully next week. But I'll address anything you may have now.
Andrew, where's
Yes.
the state on this chart?
We pretty much put it in with FEMA because essentially FEMA's going to send it to the state, who's going to send it to us.
Well, I mean, like that initial 1 point whatever.
It's in the 100% FEMA year-to-date proceeds at 1.3. I want to say, this is numbers off.
Okay, so that it was used to make that 100%. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at.
Yeah, and technically 90%, like on debris, 90% is typically going to be what people consider FEMA, with 10% being local match. Well, then we had it gets a little confusing, but bear with me. We had the pre-established disaster management contract or debris removal contract that Darrell established. That gave us an additional 2%. So we were looking at a 92-8 split. Then the state stepped in and said, we will cover the city's local match. So now, honestly, it's all coming out of almost the same pot, but we will get 100% on debris.
Understood.
I look at it as 90% FEMA and 10% state, but it's essentially all going to be in the same column here.
Okay.
I just got to say, great job keeping up with all this. I know.
And I wanted to make a comment too. Andrew makes it look very easy. And he put this information, it's a lot of information, into one little spot. it takes a dedication that I'm thankful that Andrew's willing to do and the finance department does, and the other departments that have had to help him through this. But this is a tremendous task, and I would be willing to venture to say that we're way ahead of most cities in what we're doing.
No doubt.
And I know Kim, Nim Ken, I always get his name backwards, but the TDM had, several months ago when I was at a meeting with him, and he was reminding public entities, make sure you've got this going on and this going on. And he looked at me and he said, Victoria's in good shape. I know what y'all are doing. And that's directly attributable to what Andrew was doing with that. So, Nim Kid.
Nim Kid, yeah.
So, but it's a great job, Andrew, and takes a lot of time away from what his normal duties are. And we're seeing that throughout all of our city departments. We're still dealing with Hurricane Harvey. And you'll see, some projects have had to take a step back so we could still work on this. But it's just part of it, and we're doing it every day. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Also noteworthy to remind us, all of councils, that's why we carry an emergency fund in
Absolutely.
case an emergency happens.
And it was interesting during those couple of days in the bunker there that Andrew, I noticed, and you also, Ms. Garrett, get those reports filed. Y'all were tracking that payroll and all those expenses, because I know that without the documentation, you don't get reimbursed. So y'all were on it. Y'all were very focused. While, we were worried about traffic signals down, you guys are doing paperwork. It was very obvious, so thank you for that.
Did Claudette teach you that, or you just knew that intrinsically?
All right, do you have another report
Yes.
for us, or two?
I'm off my page. Oh, so Jan saying Riverside, I've gotten off my page. So Colby's gonna, and I think they have a short video, but kind of updated that first month. We don't intend to come back every month, but we thought we'd let you know what January held for us.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. Mayor, council members, I do want to introduce Russell Tippie. Russell Tippie is our new green superintendent. He started yesterday. Russell comes with us with 26 years' experience in the golf industry, 21 of that as a Class A superintendent, and so we're excited to have Russell on board with us, and just wanted to formally introduce you all to him.
Thank you. Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome. Just know everyone agrees with everything on our golf course, no problems. But joking aside, there's a lot of passion by a lot of people for that golf course. So look at it that way as a positive thing, so welcome.
And I'm going to turn the review of the month so far over to Rolando Hernandez, our head golf pro, and I think you have video, and is that coming up first, OC, or? Okay, we'll do that first.
This is a video that Josh took the opening day, I think.
I better not be in it.
I think you are.
No.
Sure you are.
Better move.
Save me missing for last.
I don't think we took y'all. I don't know.
Grand opening has been great. We have a little over 100 people on the tee sheet for today, and it's been a wonderful turnout. We've had a lot of people showing up and excited about getting back out to the golf course. We have a lot of good feedback already from people making the turn and getting over to the backside. But it's been great response. People are excited again about the golf course. I'd love to invite everybody out to come check us out and see the golf course. We're open 7 days a week. There's tee times available every day, and it'd be great to have you guys out. You can always call in to the pro shop to make a tee time, or you can book online at playriversidegc.com.
We've been waiting for this for a long time. Yeah, it's nice to see a lot of people out here playing. We got my group here. Yeah, you gotta keep an eye on them though, They don't see me drop a ball here and there.
Who's doing the best in your group today?
We're on camera?
Yes.
I am. I'm doing pretty good.
It's an asset to Victoria. I am a Victorian, born and raised. So anything that's beneficial to the city, I'm for. And having seen the condition of it before and seeing it now, I'm impressed. Oh!
I hope every golfer within 1,000 miles comes and sees our course, and especially our local golfers. And we have memberships, we have the clubhouse is in great shape, and come out and join the fun.
All right, good evening, everybody. So really just wanted to give you guys a quick little recap of how January went. Again, just because it's opening month for us, quick things of how opening weekend went and how our first month is going, what we're seeing, some of the feedback that we're getting. So just what we're going to talk about today. So opening weekend ended up with some really good weather for January. Can't expect too much for this time of the year, as you guys have noticed over the past 30, 45 days. It's up and down. It could be 71 day and it's 32 or freezing or snowing or whatever else. So we get all the kind of different stuff. So January, we don't expect a whole bunch, but opening weekend was great. We had almost a couple hundred golfers total. You can see 100 golfers on Saturday and 86 on Sunday, and just some of the different categories that we'll track as we move forward. Obviously, the sales side is something we'll pay a whole lot of attention to help with budgets as we move forward, but understand where we're at on a month-to-month basis. And make sure that we're capturing all the correct items that we need to continue to build proper budgets and anticipate revenues for years in the coming. Rounds played on the far right-hand side, you'll see just kind of a breakdown of what we saw for that opening weekend. It's great to see that kind of half and half is annual pass guys, which is our version of membership is the annual pass holders. And it's very encouraging to see that half of it was our annual pass group, which we do want to see play on a very regular basis, and they do, but also other paying guests that are just members of the community that came out to support us that weekend as well. And you can see a couple of juniors that got out that weekend as well. So very encouraging for a first weekend. Don't want to bore you guys with all the numbers. We'd be happy if anybody didn't get a copy of it. We'd love to send over this to you, and then I'll ask for any questions that you might have on any of these items. But again, you can see the categories that we're tracking are just pretty typical stuff. We want to understand what our annual pass guys are doing, how the number of rounds that they're playing, and we'll always got information for you whenever you need it. Again, annual passes, this is as of the end of the month. We were at 138. We're actually, when I looked this morning, we were at 141, so we've had even a couple that have picked up since that point. If you remember from previous meeting, we are capping at 150 for the time being. That's going to give us kind of an idea once we get into the spring of how that annual pass holder kind of mixes in with the rest of our community on weekends and day to day, which the split of half and half that we saw on opening weekend has been great, and for most days is about the same idea. Obviously during the week, those annual pass guys, especially our senior annual pass holders, that's what they do. They play golf day to day or most days, so we get to see a lot of those guys. I've gotten to know a lot of names, know a lot of faces, and they're starting to give me a hard time whenever they get a chance. So definitely building some good friendships with those guys. It's been great to have them around. It's nice for them to keep us busy during the day when we don't have some of the other community pieces that are playing, but they definitely keep us busy for the weekends and during the week for sure. The revenues, you can see some of them. We obviously have a couple of different options of paying monthly, or you can pay for membership in full, and revenue numbers are what they are for the time being. We'll have a better monthly grasp as we get into February, which we always charge beginning of the month, and we'll start to grasp a better idea for our budgets and be able to work those things in a little bit easier as we move forward. Again, any questions that you have, we'll ask for here in a second and do my best to explain them to you. And then January sales and rounds played as a whole. You see that we did 1,500 rounds for the month. Again, great start for January. Can't ask for too much. Being the January, I'll take that every January as we move forward, 1,500 rounds. And again, a pretty good split of annual pass holders and just our normal community that's playing, those that don't have the annual passes. So again, a great split, very encouraging as we move forward. And you can see bottom just between expenses and total income, we did operate as positive this month. That is attributable mostly to the annual passes that are paid in full, which in future years we'll see that more in December than in January. Renewals will come in December's moving forward, so we'll see a big kick in December, and hopefully our spring months will get closer to those numbers on an actual basis anyways. That's it. Questions?
So what kind of items are on your lunch menu there? I noticed your food sales are down. What-
Yeah, right now, because we don't have a hot food option, we don't have those things in place inside
Okay.
the building. That's one of those capital items that we'll be pushing for here in the coming year.
Okay.
Trying to get something like that established. We need some additional help in that area of trying to get, again, hot food items that we'll supply.
Okay.
Obviously, health permits and those things behind that will need some additional attention as well.
You should advertise that when it happens. The golf capital replacement charge, that's a capital account, I suppose, that you're going to accumulate for long-term for big projects for maintenance. I mean, good to see that. I remember
Wait, a
y'all set
dollar,
that up.
a dollar round.
$1 a round goes into that capital. Very responsible.
Yep.
Like that.
I just ran one quick number, and I took the annual passes that were sold and just said, you know, if you did it on a monthly income, right, so I had to take out $84,328 for those annual passes that really pertain to the other 11 months. So we lost almost $25,000 for January, which it's January, I wouldn't expect to make a bunch of money, but that's a large number of rounds that still need to be made up.
Correct. Yeah,
So
again,
I'm
it's.
concerned about that, being able to make that up in rounds at, what are we, $32 a round?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's one of those things in January, we don't ever expect, if we broke even in January, that's a great December or a winter month. Again, the weather's up and down. You saw us have a couple of 70-degree days, but you also saw snow on the ground and a few different freezing days as well. So those are expected, and as we move through the rest of the year, we'll understand how much of a benefit March, April, May, June can be to us, and how we can recoup some of that loss if that ends up being our general breakdown or normal breakdown for a January.
Yeah, because I mean, just a normal month, if you look at it, you're just gonna have to pick up another 750 rounds to break even if you just keep the same expense structure.
Sure.
It'll be real interesting to see after a year, a full
Yeah.
year. I know because
Right.
we didn't have any of these numbers going into this, right? Previously, they didn't keep any.
Not this detailed.
This was blind, basically. but,
Almost, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it's not set in stone. Things can change, and you guys control policy on some of the day-to-day rules and fees and make recommendations as needed to us, so. we'll see
Yeah,
how-
once we get into the spring, we'll have a much better idea of what
Yeah.
we're looking at for the rest of the year. It's kind of tough. It's not golf season as most would expect when you get into March, so that'll be our real kicker when we get into March and get to see what the community play is opposed to the annual passes.
I think we were pleased with the play for January, considering it's a winter month.
It was a tough month.
No, I think we're very pleased, so.
Okay.
That's all I
Thank
got for
you.
you. Any other questions? No. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rolanda. So then the last one is the police chief's 2017 annual crime report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight I'll be presenting the annual crime report for 2017. In this report, I'll take you through some of the highlights of the report and then answer any questions that you might have. You should all have a hard copy in front of you. And I'm going to start off by going to page number 2. Just a couple comments about workload and calls for service. One of the things that we do is track the total number of calls for service. It's a good workload indicator and benchmark for the organization. And then for 2017, you notice that we had 99,464 calls for service. Compared to last year was 93,088. One other important note is response times to priority 1 emergency calls for service was 6.58 minutes. Last year, it was 7.5 minutes, so we shaved another minute off of that priority emergency response time, which was pleased to see that. Just a little bit about, because I get a lot of questions about crime stats and reporting and how we collect data, how we report data to the state, and how the state reports it to the FBI, and how the FBI ultimately publishes reports. So I just kind of want to point out that we collect our our crime data in what they call NIBRS, or National Incident-Based Reporting System. And actually, we're pretty much ahead of a lot of law enforcement agencies. They're still collecting data, reporting to the state using uniform crime reporting. There's a difference. The biggest difference being that the NIBRS uses incident-based reporting versus summary reporting. So the data we're pulling and submitting is far more detailed than some agencies that are, and so that what really gets into the major distinction when I'm talking to the media in terms of when they always want to fall back and compare, let's say, Victoria with another city. Again, I would just say that this, when we pull these numbers and we make this report, we're here, it's to give a snapshot of what's going on from a crime perspective within the community. And we would strongly caution against, in fact, the FBI says it at about 20 different times in the first paragraph to compare cities to other cities, because there's just so much variables that comes into play. But so I wanted to kind of just spend a couple of minutes on that before we kind of get into it. We report our crime as either Class 1 or Class 2 crimes. Class 1 crimes are going to be the murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assaults, burglary, theft, and motor vehicle theft. So go into page number 3, you'll start to see some graphs and statistics that speak to this. What I want to point out here is that total Class 1 crime, that being the most volume of crime or the most violent of crime, is overall was down 4.23% during 2017. Of particular note, violent crime decreased by 12%, and then property crime fell by 3.34%. And then a couple of graphs that depict some of the numbers annually on both property crime and total violent crime. On page 4, it breaks out our Class 1 crime by crime rate per 1,000 residents. You can see that there also was a reduction in those numbers compared to prior years. And then jumping down to Class 2 crime, a lot of Class 2 crime are crimes that are generated by productivity, meaning that the officers are going out, an arrest is made, but because the arrest is made for that particular crime class, it's counted also as a crime. So we also saw a 4.23% reduction in Class 2 crime. And so I sent them back numerous times. We rechecked our numbers because they're both exactly the same. And so I was very, I wanted to make sure and double check, because I've never seen that before. That's the first time I've ever seen that happen. But they've checked it many times, and I understand that the facts are correct. And then finally on page 5, just a real quick, again, it talks about Class 1 and Class 2 crimes and the graph and showing it being down. And then the last chart is arrests, and you'll notice that arrests are down. We have another report that I didn't bring today, but I will probably bring to council in the coming months when we talk about the budget. But one of the things that we're noticing is our officers are busier, as that call for service would indicate. But also what's increased is, what is not increased is our officers' uncommitted patrol time, that being what they need, the proactive time. What the numbers are showing us is that our officers are spending a lot more of their time on calls. And so they're less on the proactive time. More proactive time will increase the arrest figures. So I expected to see the arrest figures go down a little bit after we saw some of the uncommitted patrol time go down as well. So it's finding a balance between that. But those numbers were down a little bit than in previous years. And in conclusion, I just want to publicly acknowledge and thank the men and women of the Victoria Police Department, whose dedicated commitment and pride and service to our community helps achieve some of these numbers that you're seeing today. And I'm open for any questions you might have concerning the report or anything else.
Nothing? Thank you.
Good
Thank
job.
you. Sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Executive session?
Yeah, that takes us to executive session. The city council will recess for executive session on this, the 6th day of February 2018 at 6:25 PM. The subject matter of the executive session deliberation is as follows. The Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, consultation with an attorney on a matter involving pending or contemplated litigation or other matter in which the duty of the attorney to governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Thank you.
Next door here?
Yes.
Okay.
The city council is reconvening. Did you get everybody back? Yeah, at 6:42 PM. And this is item E4, which is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary in settlement of an EEOC charge and declaring an effective date.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm assuming no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Okay, ayes have it. Thank you. We are adjourned. You better make sure.